Hello, everyone. This is Ricardo Di Blasio, Senior Vice President and General Manager of NetApp North America. Welcome to Architecting Intelligence. This is a new conversation that we are going to host with a lot of different episodes and very interesting conversation. And today, I have the privilege to be joined in this episode of Architecting Intelligence, the one and only Leslie Beavers, who just gave us the pleasure to join NetApp. Leslie Beavers is the former CIO of the old DoD, now DOW, Department of War. Leslie, welcome to the episode of Architecting Intelligence. And one more time, welcome to NetApp.
Oh, Ricardo, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be part of both. This is a fantastic opportunity to talk about architecting intelligence, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
That's great. Listen, why don't we open the episode actually starting from you? You know, you absolutely have a stellar background. And as I said at the beginning, we feel so lucky to have you and to call you a NetApper today. But, you know, why don't you spend some time just to give us a little bit of more background, all the different experience you had in your career and, you know, the things you actually, the challenges that you overcome during the years and, you know, all the learning you had.
Oh, sure. Well, this is probably going to be a little bit of a surprise to you, but I'm inherently a lazy person. And that's how I got into the
I'll make
process.
two of us.
Yeah. I went to the Air Force Academy and they expected me to study like way too much. And in order to try and be very efficient in my studies, I kind of started learning how to do efficiency work. And so after I got off of active duty, I ended up with the Air Force, I ended up working at GE Healthcare back in the day and learning Lean Six Sigma and business process improvement. I did continue my military career as a reservist and rose through the ranks and finished out that career as the reserve backup to the Joint Staff J2. And while I was along the way, I went into government work for the last about 8-10 years and worked with intelligence and security on the Department of Defense at the time's staff, as well as ended up in the chief information officer role. So it's all about making life easier and being more efficient.
Well, you know, what a great experience, what a great story, what a great exposure. Let's talk now about, you know, something more related to what you have done over the years. I personally believe, you know, someone like you, any CIO actually, you know, you've been the CIO of DOW, but, you know, if I think about any type of enterprise CIO, to me, they're almost like architect, right? And I say architect, I married an architect. My wife is an architect. And, you know, when you are an architect, you're really building this type of building blocks, the different technology architecture, as a matter of fact, which are really the building blocks of the future, the present, the safety, the asset of any enterprise organization, or like in your case, a government organization, right? So building this type of technology architecture based on when, you know, people don't know who you are, right? How did you manage to gain trust and to gain the confidence of the organization that were supporting you and the organization that you were going to deliver this type of technology architecture?
Yeah, that was an interesting process. It really stemmed from two areas. One was I was not afraid to go down and knock on anybody's door and say, "Hi, my name's Leslie. I'm here to help." And can you show me your processes? And so I would really learn about an organization. And then I would spend a great deal of time understanding and interacting with all of the key decision makers within an organization, your influencers, so to speak. We used to call them like key stakeholders. And it was, and in those interactions, I was mostly asking questions and listening as opposed to pontificating on what I thought the solution was. So I started out in the collection mode to really understand a problem, and then I would find the right folks in the organization to help make better decisions and to help create flow. The whole objective was within whosever workflow it was, inquiry to order, billing, sales, accounts receivable, whatever, or even weapon systems workflows in the military. The whole objective was to reduce the friction, to pull the wasted effort out of that workflow. Once again, laziness is coming out, right? And people will resonate with that. And if you can convince them that that will be the end result, then it's much easier to get them to buy into the solution.
It makes ton of sense. When you say, how do you convince, I think about things like, for example, UX, right? User experience, which is so important, I believe, when you are leading a technology organization. So, when I think about government agencies, right, and the type of challenge that they face all the time. I mean, look, in the last few months, in the last few years, right? So, can you share a little bit more about that? How you were able to build a better UI for the government staff? And by the way, this is true for government. It's true for any type of enterprise organization around the world.
Well, let me start by highlighting a couple of the factors within the government that make the building the proper user experience more challenging. And one is the legacy architecture. And I cannot emphasize that enough. The scale that the department has, if you think about it, we're still flying aircraft from the 1950s. So the technology within the various working parts of the government, especially on the military side, are going to be very old, and they were early adopters of technology, but not necessarily modernizing along the way, because that's a very expensive process. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is the amount of security that we have to meet, those security requirements that we have to meet. And they can be from multiple organizations. So within the Department of War, you'll have to meet the federal government standards, the intelligence community standards, and the department standards, which may or may not be very closely aligned. And so that always creates a level of friction as well. So those are a couple of the kind of very real, very tangible challenges. And then the third one is we also, when we modernize or procure, there are so many people that own different pieces of that workflow or that mission thread, and they don't necessarily modernize and procure at the same time. So creating a seamless experience can be a real challenge. I'm most proud of the work that a team did at North Chicago in the medical community. The VA hospital there had been integrated, and so you had VA employees working alongside with and for Department of Defense employees or Department of War employees, the Navy, and you had the East Campus and the West Campus. And in order to send an email between the two, it would take like 32 mouse clicks in some cases, because they did not have access to each other's address books, shared storage. They couldn't share schedules. And so we put a tiger team in place for about 6 months. This is what I mean by you like go to the problem and you walk the process, and you talk to the people that are using the tools and the workflow, and then you work with them to design the architecture to solve it. And so it really turned out to be a cooperation problem within the security settings of the two clouds. And it took 6 months, but we got it up and running. And so for the first time in a very long time, the two teams that were integrated on paper were now integrated in email and shared folders and printing, which doesn't sound glorious, but boy, if you don't have it, it is a miserable, miserable time at work.
Thank you. Well, what a great story. You actually answered something that would have been my next question about security, right? And what a great story about the VA. You know, we feel very blessed, very proud to serve the VA community all over the United States, and so thank you for sharing that. So I think the last question that I would have for you is. All the challenges and the lesson learned that you just shared with us, they're not really only related to government agency or public sectors around the world. Actually, I can see a lot of enterprises, organizations having the same challenges, right? And do you agree with that? And if you agree with that, do you think there's going to be a different level of compliances or legacy constraints for a lot of organizations to do that quantum leap jump? And for example, starting to adopting more massively AI technologies.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's I think right before I left, the last number that I got from the department was an estimate of about $100 million a day of intellectual property is being stolen out of our networks here in the United States. So not just the government, but companies are going to have to protect their data in a way that we haven't had to do in the past. And so that zero trust is the approach that the department has taken, which means that you don't stop your defenses just at the perimeter. It means that you do defense in depth and you tag the people, you tag the data, and you audit continuously so that you know what's happening. And within our data architectures, the storage is really the integral part. That's the area that I would see compromised, like almost daily. I'd be getting another notification of another breach, and it's just like face shot after face shot. And the department has moved to try and improve the cybersecurity standards within the industrial base, but the commercial world needs to adopt it adopt more stringent standards, I think, kind of wholeheartedly. And you need to be securing your data, not just in transit, but also in use and at rest. And so that data storage and securing the data storage is an integral part. And if you can do that well and you can do your policies and enforce your policies at the data level, you can free your workforce to innovate and work and do their work without having to think about the architecture underneath. Because like I said that, or I may have mentioned at some point in time, I think the key to being successful in the architecture world, the information technology architecture world, in my mind, is being so good at it that the user doesn't know who you are, that there's no friction in that flow, that you've got the user is then free to innovate and work without having to think about how to use the tools. They just can use the tools. And AI and quantum are going to make that that experience different for users as we go forward, and hopefully more frictionless as we go forward. It does add to the security challenges, but I was talking to some friends the other day, and they were saying, yeah, AI is going to change how coders work because now they're going to have to interact like they're talking to a person instead of just writing code. So I'm excited about what AI can do, and I'm excited about the future. And quantum is going to be an integral part of securing our data and our networks going forward. And yeah, it can be, I suppose, a little scary, but progress is, and we are a nation of explorers, and this is just the next frontier to explore, in my mind.
Absolutely. And to keep that technology lead that United States always had and always will have, thanks to people like you. Listen, Leslie, I mean, I would keep you here the whole day. I mean, I can tell you, we were so excited at NetApp, when we read your decision to join us. And I think the last question I would like to ask you is that, what actually convinced you to get closer to NetApp? NetApp has been operating. We've been having the privilege to serve government institution in United States, but actually globally for a very long time. So I hope and I believe and I know we have a very strong reputation. So can you share a little bit about what has been your decision criteria?
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of things. First off, I love to work with world-class teams, and NetApp is absolutely that. And the other thing is, data is, to me, fundamental to our ability to modernize, to go forward, to stay number one. And so that in my parlance, which I stole from Disney's Three Musketeers, when Porthos is running around the dungeon and he runs into this big ugly guy that was very scary. He yells, "Big ugly," turns around and runs away. I've made my career out of taking on the big uglies. I look at those big, hard challenges as opportunity. And I think NetApp is perfectly positioned to break out in this area. And I'm excited to be part of the team.
And we are excited to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, Leslie Beavers. Leslie, thank you for joining us this morning at the first episode of Architecting Intelligence. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you here, and I look forward to have another episode of our Architecting Intelligence. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Ricardo.